Quaver TV. I'm Quaver TV. Today we're talking about something that cuts deeper than nostalgia. The psychological warfare waged on an entire generation. The deliberate fracturing of trust. The systematic demolition of reality itself. This episode is for every Gen X mind that finally connected the dots and realized we weren't just witnesses to history. We were the experiment. Let's start with what we inherited. Before we were even born, they murdered a president in Dealey Plaza and sold the country a fairy tale about a lone gunman with supernatural marksmanship. 3 shots, 2.3 seconds. A magic bullet that defied physics. They coined the term conspiracy theorist to shut down questions about their own crimes. They assassinated a reverend who threatened to unite the poor across racial lines. Martin Luther King wasn't just preaching about dreams when they killed him. He was organizing economic boycotts that would have crippled the machine. So they silenced him, then turned his message into a harmless holiday. That was the foundation, the cracked world we were born into. But our trauma, our generation's specific breaking points, those came later. We grew up in the shadow of nuclear war, but not the drills. That was the generation before us. Our nuclear anxiety came from movies like The Day After and Threads, the constant background hum of mutually assured destruction. The doomsday clock, always 5 minutes to midnight. We knew the world could end, but it felt distant until it felt real. We were raised on manufactured terror, Pennywise in the storm drains, Freddy in our dreams, Jason at summer camp, the satanic panic convincing parents that daycare workers were ritual abusers, missing kids on milk cartons staring at us every morning, stranger danger campaigns that made us afraid of everyone except the actual predators running the institutions. Our cartoons were psychological programming. G.I. Joe taught us war was fun. Transformers sold us toys based on defense contracts. The Smurfs were communist propaganda with a dictator Papa figure. We were being shaped by corporate focus groups before we could tie our shoes. Then came the Challenger. January 28, 1986. Every classroom in America watching live. A teacher going to space. Our teacher. Someone who looked like the adults we trusted every day. This was the height of the space program push. Presidential fitness tests, schools pumping out future astronauts. We were 8, 9, 10 years old, and they had us believing we were the generation that would reach the stars. 73 seconds later, Krista McAuliffe became a fireball in the sky. We cried, we prayed, they sent us home. Schools closed, an entire generation of children traumatized in real time on live television. Something fundamental shattered that day, and we're still carrying those pieces 40 years later. The first mass tragedy we witnessed. The first time we realized the adults didn't actually have it under control. They told us marijuana would make us violent psychopaths, showed us eggs frying in pans, created mandatory minimum sentences that destroyed families. But they never mentioned the CIA trafficking cocaine through Mena, Arkansas. They never mentioned the crack epidemic was engineered. They were flooding our communities with drugs while arresting us for using them. They gave us the illusion of democracy. Red team, blue team, choose your fighter. But both parties voted for the same wars, the same bailouts, the same surveillance state. The only difference was the marketing strategy. Then came our awakening moments. Rodney King getting beaten by 4 cops in broad daylight. We watched the video. We saw the brutality. We knew what happened. Then they acquitted the cops and Los Angeles burned. That's when we learned the justice system was a joke and the media would lie about what we could see with our own eyes. The O.J. trial. Not O.J. the athlete, O.J. the killer. We watched months of evidence that he murdered 2 people. DNA, blood, motive, opportunity. Then we watched him walk free because he had good lawyers and the right skin color in the right city at the right time. That's learned that truth doesn't matter if you can afford to make it disappear. The Gulf War. The first war sold to us like a video game. Smart bombs, surgical strikes, collateral damage. They made murder look clean and precise. We watched it on CNN like it was entertainment. That's when we learned war was a product and we were the target market. They taught us money was backed by gold until 1971. That the Federal Reserve was a government institution instead of a private banking cartel. That inflation was natural instead of theft. That debt was normal instead of enslavement. Then they crashed the economy every few decades and handed themselves trillion-dollar bailouts while families lost their homes. Waco, Ruby Ridge, the government murdering its own citizens for having different beliefs, then covering it up, then doing it again. That's when we learned the Constitution was toilet paper when it got in their way. The Clinton years, Whitewater, Monica Lewinsky, the Clinton body count. We watched them destroy women who threatened their power. We watched them lie under oath. We watched them get away with it. That's when we learned sexual predators could be president if they had the right connections. Columbine. 2 kids walked into a school and murdered their classmates. We watched the SWAT teams stand outside while children died. We watched them blame video games and music instead of asking why kids wanted to kill each other. That's when we learned our schools were prisons and our children were targets. Then came 9/11. We watched the towers fall at free fall speed. We watched Building 7 collapse without being hit. We watched the Pentagon get struck by something that left a hole too small for a commercial airliner. We watched the government's story change 17 times. We watched the evidence get shipped to China and melted down. And the media told us we were heroes while they passed the Patriot Act and started spying on our emails. We lived through the mortgage crisis, the banking collapse, the too big to fail bailouts. We watched them steal homes and crash pensions while handing themselves bonuses. We watched them turn an entire generation into debt slaves. We saw them flood our communities with opioids, create the addiction crisis, then blame the victims. Purdue Pharma knew OxyContin was addictive from day one. The FDA approved it anyway. The patients got hooked. The families got destroyed. We watched them weaponize social media to fragment attention spans, polarize communities, and harvest data. They turned human connection into a product and wonder why everyone feels isolated. And through it all, we kept asking questions. Why do the same families run everything? Why does every major institution push the same narratives? Why does dissent get censored? Why do whistleblowers die in convenient accidents? Why does the truth always have to be excavated from classified documents released decades later? We woke up with red pills scattered everywhere and a completely shattered worldview. And that's where Brain 2 comes in. Because after surviving decades of psychological warfare, gaslighting, and manufactured chaos, we need technology that actually serves us instead of surveilling us. We need systems that remember what we've learned instead of correcting us back to the official story. We need tools that enhance our intelligence instead of replacing it. Brain 2 doesn't forget your insights. It doesn't gaslight you with sanitized responses. It doesn't correct your lived experience to match some algorithmic consensus. It's an extension of your mind, not a handler for your thoughts. We've had enough handlers, enough experts, enough authorities telling us what to think and feel and believe. We're Gen X. We survived the programming. We decoded the lies. We found the truth buried under layers of deception and psychological manipulation. We're not broken. We're not traumatized. We're not bitter. We're awake.